Today I am in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and I'm going to start off showing you guys this house I found for sale. It's a pretty middle of the road house here. This house is listed for sale at $325,000. It's a 2-bedroom, 3-bathroom, 2,100 square feet. And if you were to put a 20% down payment on this house, your payment would be about $2,000 per month, which in today's world sounds pretty affordable, especially when you look at places like Miami and LA, New York, whatever. But they actually have been trying to sell this house for a very long time. Check this out. This house was first listed all the way back in October of 2022 for $420,000, and they have gone through several different price cuts or price corrections, shall I say, right? And they even lowered the price down to $305,000 at one point, and now it's back up to $325,000. So they've had a pending sale at least twice, fell through. Who knows what's going on here? But these guys have been trying to sell this house for a really long time, and it's just not working out. But I'll tell you one thing that is nice about this house is the property tax bill here right now is only $911 per year. I've never seen anywhere as cheap as New Mexico so far. So that is a killer deal. Now I chose this area here because it looks like a pretty average neighborhood for Las Cruces. I don't really know the area, but the houses here aren't crazy expensive. And I wanted to find a place that had sidewalks like this because, you know, when I was in Louisiana, I walked down a street that had no sidewalks there, and it felt pretty dangerous. The speed limit was only like 20 miles an hour, and people were doing like 50 down that street. Plus, there's a lot of houses on the street that I saw have a bunch of trees in the yard, which will give me a little bit of extra shade that I could really use out here because it is 102 degrees today, feels like 97. That's kind of weird, right? Temperature's hotter, but feels like 97. I would say that being out here in these hot desert towns is kind of like standing in front of a hairdryer, and being in Miami is kind of like walking through a sauna. So they're both hot, they both suck in different regards. Two different types of heat, neither one of them is good. Now, one thing I wanted to touch on today is who is in charge of this housing market right now? Who is causing everything to just completely stay afloat and home prices to stay high? Well, I kind of covered this a little bit a couple months ago, but you know who it is? It's baby boomers, okay? Baby boomers right now make up about 39% of homeowners. That is significant. And millennials make up only 28%, and millennials is the next largest generation compared to baby boomers, and millennials are in their prime buying years right now and should own probably a more significant chunk of the real estate pie, but are having a hard time catching up to baby boomers. Now, before you think I'm picking on baby boomers and I'm gonna, say a bunch of bad things about people in this generation, I'm not. I know people in this generation had a lot of great opportunities, I guess you could say, where the timing was just right for so many different things, growing up at a time when the cost of living was a lot lower than it is today, and having explosive wage growth and stock market growth for the last 50 years. Anybody who invested in anything during this time frame probably did pretty well for themselves and made a decent amount of money. But it turns out that there is a multitude of reasons of why baby boomers are essentially steering the housing market right now. And one of the big ones is the people who have investments and they're cash flowing real estate right now, they're not selling that because that's helping fuel their retirement. And when you combine cash flowing real estate with maybe a 401k as well as Social Security income, that's not bad. People can live off of that and live a nice, comfortable life. And it turns out there is a good chunk of baby boomers that own multiple properties that they use as investments and are able to rent out and live off of the income. And before you say that that's bad, real estate investment should be banned and all of this, well, guess what, guys? In case you don't know, the reason why real estate investment is so popular and so many people want to do it is for a couple of different reasons. Number one is because there are a ton of tax benefits for doing so, and having that somewhat passive income, because it's definitely not fully passive, is a nice added bonus. However, the government helps people who invest in real estate because it's something that they don't do themselves. The government doesn't invest in real estate. The government doesn't build homes to rent out to people and provide housing. So they give tax benefits to people who do that, because even though you're taking a couple of homes off the market for sale, when you turn it into a rental, it is now a rental home for somebody else to live in, and as long as the rent is affordable for the area, it's still a housing opportunity. It's not a home off the market like a vacation home, for example, that just sits empty until the owner wants to use it. And when it comes to baby boomers and choosing to age in place right now, it is a choice, because right now is not really looking like a great time to move, like many other sellers are thinking. And a lot of baby boomers bought their homes 15, maybe 20 years ago at much lower than today's prices, probably refinanced at least once throughout that time period into a low interest rate, and doesn't really have the incentive to move into their later years, which makes complete sense right now, and also can be part of the explanation of why we don't have a lot of inventory on the housing market. Now, another thing is baby boomers have accumulated more wealth and equity than pretty much any other generation, and a lot of times have a paid off mortgage. They have more disposable income than younger generations, and they have, these assets that cash flow. And guess what? When you have that combination of things going on, that allows you to be able to buy even more real estate. Puts you in a pretty good position financially. So, you can afford to go out here and buy 2, 3, 4 rental homes and have those investments going on for yourself. And that's something I even aspire to do as well. That's something that I think a lot of people could actually achieve if they wanted to do. And it's a solid way to actually retire in the future and have some income that is reliable. And one of the other reasons that baby boomers have so much wealth is, for a lot of the things I just said, is because they were able to enter the housing market at a time when home prices were much more affordable and interest rates were more favorable. And even if they didn't get a favorable rate, they were able to refinance at some point down the road and get into that 2.9 or 3.5% mortgage a couple years ago. Or maybe they don't even have a mortgage. Like I just said, they've had a couple decades now to build some solid equity. And why on earth would you refinance if you're 5, 8 years away from paying off your mortgage? Doesn't really make a lot of sense. And that brings me right into my next point, is part of the wealth that baby boomers have is that with all of the equity that they have in their regular residential homes that they live in, as well as their rental properties, guess what you can now do? You can now pull the equity out of those properties to buy even more real estate. That's what a lot of savvy real estate investors do. And of course, it takes financial education and skill. You got to know what you're doing to be able to do this and find the right deal that makes sense to do it. But it can be done, and it can be profitable. So glad I found this park with all this shade here. They got all these trees. It feels so good under the shade when you're walking out here in the heat like this. And by the way, guys, if you're enjoying this video and my travel series here, please make sure you subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. There's going to be many more videos like this to come in the near future. And before I move on real quick, I just want to say that a couple people asked me why I didn't do videos in Alabama and Mississippi, because I had to pass through those states to get where I'm at now. It's just because I'm on a tight schedule and I need to get to California by Wednesday to check into my rental. But when I drive back to Miami, I will have more time to get back there, and I will probably be doing more stops than I'm doing right now in different areas across the country on the way back home, and be doing more videos like this. So just to keep you posted on that. Now, here's another fact of life right now, is millennials just have more home buying experience, okay? They've already probably bought and sold 2 or 3 houses, maybe even more throughout their lifetime, and that gives them a huge advantage when it comes to knowing how to spot a good deal, knowing the process, and knowing when you should overbid on something, or maybe you should never overbid depending on the neighborhood, and things like that, things to look for that might be wrong with the property. And you have a lot of young home buyers out there that are so eager to get into the home. They have this massive FOMO that they think they might never be able to own something if they don't buy it today. And that has led to so many recent buyer's remorse stories of people getting into houses they can't afford, or that has a ton of problems, or the property taxes and the insurance and all of the expenses related to the house have gone up so much since they bought it that it's practically unaffordable now. And those are the type of mistakes that a lot of baby boomers can just avoid, because they've already been down that road before. You know what I'm saying? Now here's another big one, which I think is a huge factor in baby boomers' success, and that is that they are done raising families, okay? All their kids are grown up. They're my age, okay? My parents are baby boomers, essentially. So, you know, they're done raising families, and guess what? When you don't have to pay for the massive expense of raising kids anymore, it gives you more disposable income to spend on the real estate market. And most importantly, out of everything, they're living longer. Medicine and technology has advanced tremendously over the past few decades, and people aren't dying in their late 60s anymore for the most part. You know, people are living into their late 70s and 80s and even 90s and 100. And, you know, those trends make a big difference in how much time people have to accumulate more wealth, how much time they have to make more investments, and ultimately lead us to where we're at today. We just had this perfect storm of a very blessed generation to have so many great opportunities to get them to where they're at today. And then we had the pandemic, we had the money printing, and the low interest rates that just fueled all this madness even further. So it's not like I'm blaming baby boomers for, you know, this crazy housing situation right now, but no doubt they definitely have a hand in keeping prices sustainably high right now and fueling the buying in this market, because they're still the lion's share owners of all of the real estate, and they're the biggest percentage of buyers out there still. And oftentimes they will outbid people in the younger generation simply because they can. If they want a property bad enough, they normally have the resources to make that happen, where somebody in their early 20s doesn't. Now, one more thing I wanted to mention real quick about myself and the channel is I really love answering your comments, guys, and I haven't had a chance to get to any comments all week, except for some in the video I did with Travis. That was my first real chance to get to any of them, so I apologize for not being able to answer you guys, but it's just a lot of work, always being on the go, driving, planning, filming, editing. There's just really no time left over for that right now. But when I get to California, my schedule will be more back to normal, so to speak. But even though I just covered how some baby boomers are doing so well right now, not all of them are. In fact, I saw a story about how to safely raid your retirement fund right now if you have to. And that's pretty sad, guys, to even think about that to begin with. Like, you're working for 20, 30 years trying to build up a retirement account, and now you got to think about, oh, maybe I'm going to have to pull some money out of this because I'm running into some financial obstacles later in life that I wasn't expecting. So it's not like all baby boomers are rich and just crushing it right now. Of course, a percentage of them are, but not all of them. Now, when it comes to retirement accounts, if you withdraw money before the age of 59 and a half, not only you get hit with a 10% federal penalty, also you get hit with income tax on that, and you lose the future compound interest you would have earned on that money. So you're taking a pretty big hit when you decide to pull money out of a retirement account prematurely. So it's really something that only should be done in an emergency when there's no other option. And they give this interesting mathematical example here that if you're 30 years old and you withdraw $1,000 from a retirement account or a 401k, you could lose $11,000 in future retirement money when you're factoring in a 7% return. So that's pretty significant, and that's only $1,000. You know, it's so weird walking around here. Like, this area is just so strange, guys. Like, this street that we were just on looks so nice, and then you walk through here and then you have like totally like abandoned, burned out houses just right around the corner. The area just gets real dodgy real fast, and I have seen some like weird tweakers walking around here, just like kind of like you would see in California, but even stranger, you know, like people walking on this crazy hot pavement with like just socks on and, you know, nodding their heads, weird stuff like that. I mean, we have a little bit of that in Miami, but nothing like what I've seen here so far. I wish I had some of it on video for you. Now, Congress recently passed a few different ways that you can avoid penalties and basically some exceptions and allow you to repay the money if you need to raid your retirement account in case of an emergency. They passed this law called Secure 2.0, and what this is they're basically a package of penalty exceptions for retirement plans. So for example, how this is supposed to work is if you take out $10,000 from an IRA account and you use that money for a first-time home purchase, fueling the housing market, keeping things propped up, right? And or if you use it for higher education, basically the criminal education system that grossly overcharges for going to college, if you use the money for either one of those two things, which is what the government wants you to do, you won't get hit with a penalty, but you also won't be able to repay the money later and get the taxes refunded. So there's definitely some pros and cons to doing this, and that's why only taking money out for real emergencies is really the way to go. Now, another big exception that they made here is with disasters and terminal illness and family expansion. So if you went through any type of natural disaster like a hurricane, wildfire, anything like that, this could potentially apply to you. And what this is if you live in a federally declared disaster area and suffer an economic loss, you can withdraw up to $22,000 penalty-free from your retirement account, but the income taxes still have to be repaid, but it can be spread over the course of 3 years to reduce the potential tax impact that you might have. This is actually going to be made retroactive going back to January of 2021. So say you had to make an unexpected withdrawal because of the disaster that you experienced in the middle of 2021. Say you went through Hurricane Ian back in 2022, this could apply to you. And another one is terminal illness. Starting this year in 2023, the 10% penalty is waived for people whose doctor certifies that they're expected to die within 7 years, and there's no limit on how much money you can withdraw. And that one I would actually say is a job well done. Finally, something that sounds good. I mean, this is so sad, guys. If you're in this situation, it means you're younger than 59 and a half and you're declared that you might die in the next 7 years. It's your money. You should be able to take it out penalty free and use it as you wish while you're still alive. And the fact that there's no limit either is great. And they also give you a $5,000 withdrawal exception within 12 months after a child is born or adopted. So you can take out $5,000 penalty free from your retirement account just in case you have a kid or you decide to adopt one. And you know, maybe that's because people aren't having enough kids and they know that there's a big population problem we're going to have in the next couple of decades. So maybe that's the incentive for this. I don't know. They've also made exceptions for people who are victims of domestic abuse or you have a financial emergency. The 10% penalty is waived for people that go through domestic violence, and you get a penalty-free withdrawal up to $10,000 or less, or 50% of their account's value, and it can be repaid over the course of 3 years. And also they're giving people just $1,000 emergency fund, saying, hey, anyone now can take out $1,000 from their retirement account penalty free in case of an emergency. And this is all self-certified, so all you need to do is provide a written statement asserting that you meet the requirements without having to supply other documents or proof. So pretty much anyone can take advantage of this. It can be a lie, it can be faked, but it's your money in the end. So what this tells me is the government realizes that people are running out of money right now and are looking for ways to fill the gap. And where are they going to turn to first? The retirement accounts. And the fact that they're putting these things into play, some of them are good, like if you actually get diagnosed with a terminal illness and you need to take that money out while you're still alive, fine, great. They're helping people in case you have an emergency. You should already have that saved up, really. My guess is if you have to raid your retirement account for the $1,000 emergency, then you probably don't even have a retirement account, because that means you're probably not doing very well financially, or you're not very responsible with your money, because most people, if they have a retirement account, probably have an emergency fund as well and will not need to raid the retirement account for $1,000. And you know what's interesting about this is they're making all these exceptions for the withdrawals, but the reality is they know for a fact that even though these exceptions are in place, that people will take advantage of this, and almost everyone who does likely will not repay the money and put more money back into the retirement account. So this is pretty much a lot of people's last-ditch effort to say, hey, I'm already maxed out on the credit cards and I already took out the HELOC loan, so all I have left is the retirement account. And they're trying to just make it easy for everybody to just take as much money out and keep this economy going right now. Now, here's an interesting thing. About 51% of consumers who were surveyed recently from Cox Automotive say that they're now considering either a new or used electric vehicle and that number is up from 38% of people who were considering this back in 2021. But you know what's really interesting about this is that the EVs are not meeting the sale expectations, not even close in fact. Turns out that a bunch of electric vehicles are piling up on the car dealership lots right now because there's not enough buyers for them. Right now, electric vehicle sales account for about 6.5% of all cars sold in the US auto market, and it's expected to surpass 1 million this year, which would be a record. And there's supposed to be a bunch of new models coming out right now. In fact, there's 33 new models of electric vehicles arriving this year, and 50 new models are expected to be coming in 2024. So automakers are definitely ramping up EV production, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense because if they're not selling them, why would they be making so many of them? Right now it's estimated that there's more than 92,000 electric vehicles sitting on car lots unsold, and it's 350% of the supply that's needed actually. So far beyond what people are willing to actually buy right now. Turns out, just like the housing market, they keep track of the level of supply and demand, and that equals about a 92-day supply of EVs on the market, which is usually twice the industry average. And the average for dealership lots is 54 days worth of gasoline-powered vehicles in inventory when they were rebounding from the pandemic, and prior to then it was actually a 70-day supply. And here's the interesting thing about this. These numbers do not include any Teslas, and we know that Teslas are pretty much the most popular electric vehicles in the country because Tesla doesn't have dealerships. They sell cars straight to the consumer. So the actual numbers are probably a lot higher than this. Genesis, which is a Korean luxury brand, only sold 18 of its $82,000 electrified G80 sedans, and there's still 210 of them in stock nationwide, which is a 350-day supply of those Genesis cars. You have the Audi Q4 e-tron and Q8 e-tron, the GMC Hummer. They also have big inventories, well above 100 days worth, and they all come with the huge price tags to go along with it, which also makes these vehicles ineligible for the Inflation Reduction Act tax credit. They have electric Hyundai models that are piling up as well because they're not eligible for the tax credit. The electric Ford Mustang has a 117-day supply on the market right now. Here's the interesting thing, and I've heard this from you guys before as well, that hybrids are the most popular type of vehicle right now because they have much lower inventory levels. What this suggests is people either want a stepping stone to electric vehicles, they don't want to go all in fully electric right away, or what it could suggest is that people don't want electric cars at all. They really just want more fuel efficiency and don't want to have to fully rely on stopping to charge the car every couple hours when you're on a road trip, for example. I couldn't imagine having to deal with that with all the driving and all the things I've had to do right now on this road trip. Having an electric car, honestly guys, would be a nightmare. And I'm just saying that from my own point of view because it takes a good half an hour to get a good fast charge in. It only takes me 5 minutes to stop at the gas station, and with all the time constraints and all the things I already have to do, that would just add up to the things I have to do, which would really be stressing me out right now. But it's expected that electric vehicles are supposed to reach a similar price point to gasoline cars by the year 2025. So that'll be interesting to see if that actually happens and it's going to be enough for people to get out there and start ramping up the EV sales to where they want them to go. Honestly guys, I don't know if it's just the price that's holding people up, because that's certainly not the hold up for me. I've shared some concerns on this in the past, like I have nowhere to charge it. I don't live in a house, I live in a condo. I'm not gonna go out and charge the car every time I need to. You know, some people that live in houses like this can just have their own charger hooked up, and it makes it easy for them to keep the car charged, and especially if you don't use it for long distance trips like I'm doing, it can be pretty beneficial to have an electric car. But to say that, you know, they have to be for everyone and that, you know, there can't be any gas-powered vehicles by 2030 or whatever some of these crazy laws that some of these states or cities are coming out with, I think it's just wrong. I think it's not practical, and it's not really a reasonable expectation to have, to force something like that onto the consumer. Let people decide, you know? The sales and the market will tell you what people want, okay? They didn't have to ban VCR sales by 1997, right? DVD players naturally took over because they were just far superior. They were better. And what happened to VCRs? They slowly faded away and died out, right? They didn't have to ban VCR sales. So why do they have to do this with cars? If electric vehicles truly are superior and they end up being more beneficial to own and they end up being more cost effective, less expensive, consumers will figure that out and the market will speak for itself and actually pull the trigger, and electric cars will become the dominant vehicles and gas-powered cars will fade away on their own. But the sales figures of what people want right now are not showing that proof of concept even now in 2023. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you click the bell notification down below. YouTube will alert you every time I post a new video. And if you don't want to wait, check out my next one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.